Vegeta and future Trunks went into the Room of Spirit and Time. They went in first in order to train and break the Super Saiyan wall, come out stronger than ever in hopes of defeating the android threat at the time. As we are all very well aware, Vegeta and Trunks both ascended, both able to use what has been labelled Super Saiyan Grade 2 and 3. And although Vegeta used Grade 2 against Cell, he knew the speed and stamina issues with using Grade 3, which is why he didn't focus on it. Trunks, on the other hand, went balls deep against Cell and tested the Grade 3, which was a complete failure. However, after the failure of defeating Cell, Vegeta and Trunks returned to the lookout, awaiting the return of Goku and Gohan from the Room of Spirit and Time. And to everyone's shock, they leave much earlier, and didn't spend the whole year inside. Now, bearing in mind, before everyone entered the time chamber, you can argue that Vegeta was stronger than Goku based on certain dialogue, but typically the fandom likes to see Goku and Vegeta around the same level of Super Saiyan power before they both entered the training. Also, with future Trunks, I believe it's implied that his Super Saiyan power was not the same levels as Goku or Vegeta during the early android fights. But Goku and Gohan had left the time chamber showcasing a mastery of Super Saiyan, which when fully powered up would be referred to as the Mastered Super Saiyan or Super Saiyan Grade 4, and in order to achieve this, Goku and Gohan had learned how to stay transformed as a regular Super Saiyan 24/7, or at least when they are awake. Not focusing on the Grade 2 or 3 variants, but strictly focusing on basic Super Saiyan mastery, which in turn made Goku and Gohan overcome the wild emotional roller coaster of being a Super Saiyan, as well as conserving a ton of stamina when fighting as a Super Saiyan. Super Saiyan had pretty much become their new base form. Coming out of the time chamber, Vegeta and the others speculate to what is going on. Vegeta couldn't even feel their energy. But the question none of them asked is, how did they do it? So then we would learn Vegeta and future Trunks would both go inside the time chamber for another year, where Goku made it pretty clear he would not be going back in with Gohan. To everyone's shock, he mentions there's no point going in this stressing the body like torture. That's not actually training. But after Vegeta comes out from another trip, in the anime at least, Piccolo mentions Vegeta has grown stronger, but it's still not enough. In the Japanese original, I believe Piccolo just looks at him and then goes back to meditating as if to say, big deal, not impressed. Now, based on their performance in the Cell games, Vegeta and future Trunks both feel and perform at a similar level of power. It would be hard to tell the difference between them, but both fall far short of Goku and Gohan in their Super Saiyan forms, despite going in the time chamber a second time. So where did it all go wrong for Vegeta and Trunks? Why could they not achieve the Mastered Super Saiyan Grade 4, or not even rival Goku and Gohan in terms of raw power at least, after good old-fashioned raw Saiyan punishment training, despite their power going in the second time was far greater than themselves and Goku going in the first time. Now, first of all, we all know the main reason for Goku and Gohan getting stronger ready for the Cell games, and that was for the plot. To allow Goku and Gohan to have their big fights with Cell, seeing as Vegeta and Trunks already had them. Going in to train for a second time, Vegeta had a few main goals. Surpass Kakarot because it's Android Saga Vegeta, also to defeat Cell, and finally to get stronger because he's a Saiyan prince with insecure pride issues. You would assume his motivation was there. It was. So seeing Kakarot in this tranquil state, seemingly mastering the Super Saiyan power at rest, this had to annoy Vegeta. Kakarot has done it again. But even though he realized it was a way to get stronger, being the prince and wanted to do things his own way, you could bet that reason number one Vegeta didn't achieve this Mastered Super Saiyan form was because he did not want to copy Kakarot due to his pride. This was the result of Kakarot's training. In his head, he would not succumb or seek that way of training like him. He wants results his own way, and you could see Vegeta going about his training his way, in a very stubborn way, being ignorant to what really counts at this point in the training. And that was the focus on conserving power and mastering the state of being a Super Saiyan. Focusing on being a great all-round fighter, not just becoming very strong. I like that theme of the Cell games, even though just getting stronger is the win condition in Dragon Ball typically. But I still like that theme. Vegeta went into the time chamber to train the same way he always does, in believing that would be enough if he gets another big increase like he did the first time around. However, he was wrong. Despite getting somewhat stronger, the increase was not as impactful as the first time, and this could lead to another reason at that time in the story for Vegeta, and that was his actual raw power potential was probably maxed out during that time in terms of training like a brute. If he kept training like he was, raising his power like in grade 2 or 3, he's going to just raise raw brute power, but in terms of being an all-round fighter, an efficient fighter, there was so much more to it. that the story was implying at that time, not just brute power. And also the story just generally hyping up Gohan's hidden potential like it's the best of the lot of them. Dragon Ball Z's story focused on that since day one. Anyway, Vegeta wanted to get strong his way, but it failed to surpass the way Kakarot trained. Maybe Vegeta tried a different way to get stronger, but that failed. Being proud here was a big weakness. Which leads us to this reason, the actual practice and technique, or being able to master Super Saiyan, where Vegeta may have not at that time been able to do it. Think about it. Tranquil and Android Saga Vegeta do not go hand in hand. Vegeta had a massive chip on his shoulder, his anxiety was through the roof, he was angry, he was irritable, he just wanted to rage out and get strong. Let's say Vegeta did try to master Super Saiyan whilst in the time chamber. The way he transforms is through a lot of self-hatred and general anger. To put a lid on all of that would take Vegeta a lot more effort than it would take Goku. Remember, Goku had training on Yardrat, controlling his spirit after he became a Super Saiyan on Namek, being able to balance on the mountain peak as calm as a still lake. Goku was the type of warrior who had inner peace, and mastering Super Saiyan would come second nature to him, and was probably an extension of what he learned on Yardrat, because we all know he was ready to ascend the moment he woke up from the heart virus issue. For Vegeta to stay in a state of his angered, fueled Super Saiyan, this would be extremely difficult, so perhaps he did actually try it inside the time chamber, but when he realized this way of growing was just not for him, and that it would take far too long to get used to it, he probably would have resorted back to his old, raw, basic principles. So another reason I want to bring up is the fact that Goku and Gohan worked together, whereas Vegeta and Trunks did not. Goku and Gohan going into the training of mastering Super Saiyan would both have had similar kind-hearted natures, which is a bonus, but both would be able to support each other and keep each other motivated to make sure they did their best every day to stay in that form as long as possible when it felt like they were about to give up. You could also argue because two Saiyan potentials would train against each other, this would grow their power much faster than if one trained alone, similar to how Vegeta and Trunks trained alone. Just through two Saiyans fighting each other passively and growing through battle every day, a one-time trip would have been more than enough than two solo trips, which makes you wonder, what if Vegeta and Trunks worked together, battled together daily, and actually supported each other rather than there being a distance between them? It makes you wonder, character-wise anyway, if they had the potential to grow as much as Goku and Gohan, which they obviously did due to bloodlines, but plot. And it makes you wonder, what if Goku and Gohan went in a second time? But maybe at that point in the story it was implying both of them had hit their raw power peak anyway. Being of similar hybrid nature to Gohan, and unquestionably having far more motivation to defeat the androids, the only reasons you can say Trunks didn't achieve mastery of Super Saiyan, or hell, even Super Saiyan 2, was due to plot, but mostly due to training alone and being someone with actually very poor training experience and history, as well as not being very perceptive. Think about it, Trunks is a guy who had a brief moment of training with future Gohan. Ever since then, he ran away and hid every day of his life, and suffered extreme pain. He may do a few sword chops here and there in the mountains, but really, what experience of training does this guy have? Absolutely low amounts. The only times he saw someone train intensely for a long period of time was watching his own father train inside the time chamber, which if you think about it, all he did was pick up on things visually, and trying to learn something from someone as hot-headed and angry as Vegeta is not going to be the best way of learning. Trunks went into the time chamber a second time, still with limited training experience, and probably just trained in a raw Saiyan punishment training procedure just like before. Imagine Goku went into the time chamber with Trunks, and the story called for Trunks to be the one to defeat Perfect Cell. This hybrid is going places, bro. In a nutshell, Vegeta and Trunks trained harder, but Goku and Gohan trained smarter. Those two didn't know how to properly train to the same degree as Goku did. This is a key difference between them all. Vegeta was born strong, and even as a child, rarely encountered anyone he couldn't overwhelm by brute force. He neither wanted, in his pride, nor had much access to any teachers to guide him. Most of what he knows is self-taught or through imitation. He doesn't humble himself to the point of asking someone to teach him until Whis. Goku was born weak, and in his early years encountered many friends, foes alike, who were actually stronger than him at times. As such, he learned there was something to be gained through learning from others, and was receptive to teaching. He was also fortunate in having many good teachers, good not only at fighting but also good at teaching. Trunks had the misfortune of not having access to good teachers, as all decent candidates were dead in his timeline. The training from Gohan was minimal. You might notice that when Goku and Gohan were training, Goku used his knowledge to bring out Gohan's hidden potential, and then used Gohan as an effective training partner to bring out his own strength. Like I said, Trunks and Vegeta didn't get that much training time together. Vegeta ignored Trunks most of the time, and this reduced the effectiveness of their training, and was a much less efficient way of exploiting their inner Saiyan growth abilities. And this is a popular theme in Goku and Vegeta's rivalry. Vegeta works much harder and trains much more intensely than Goku, but still cannot catch up. But that is because Goku trains much more efficiently, because he has been taught how to train and he is humble enough to accept the help of others in the form of instruction as sparring partners. Vegeta in his pride goes it alone and pays the consequence. Super Vegeta vs Super Trunks, Battle of the Ascended Saiyans. Who is the strongest? This has been the Dragon Ball Z debate for decades. And today we are going to dive in depth about who is actually the stronger all-round warrior between the two. In the Cell saga leading up to the Cell games, some say Trunks, some say Vegeta, but why do fans say either one? Now probably the most common answer you will get by a majority of casual fans about who is the strongest between the two after they finish their first round in the hyperbolic time chamber, most will say Trunks was stronger than Vegeta because he held back, he had surpassed his father, and I can see why they would say that. Super Vegeta kicked Perfect Cell on the head, does absolutely nothing to him, a failed final flash, tons of energy blasts, leading to Cell basically breaking Vegeta's back and ending him. This is followed up by Super Trunks powering up, having an initial warm-up round against Cell which didn't look too bad, landing a hit here and there, following up with further power-ups and an epic matchup in the Ghost from Tomorrow episode. Eventually this leads to Cell outclassing Trunks, but the point being, Trunks looked like he performed better against Perfect Cell than Vegeta did. It looked that way, right? And it's true to some extent. Trunks did perform better against Cell than Vegeta did. It is even more true that Trunks did display a power far greater than Super Vegeta's on-screen power by utilizing Super Saiyan Grade 3, often referred to as the Ultra Power or Ultra Trunks, whereas Vegeta only utilized the Grade 2 power. So in technical terms, yes, Trunks was stronger than Vegeta in that battle, and the reason for that was he used a transformation that ascended his brute force, which if he did hit Cell with it, it would hurt. Now, just because Grade 3 Trunks performed better against Cell than Vegeta did, and utilized a different, more powerful form than Vegeta, does not mean he was stronger than Vegeta as an overall character in terms of what their potential was. You see, in both the anime and manga of Dragon Ball Z, it specifically stated, after Trunks failed to beat Cell, it stated Vegeta was able to obtain and use the Ultra Power that Trunks used, but chose not to do it. That's a very important word. Not couldn't, but chose not to in battle, for the most obvious of reasons: the speed disadvantage from the overloaded muscle mass, as well as the insane amount of stamina depletion from transforming, powering up and sustaining the form. It's so simple to understand, and Vegeta chose not to use it. Now, you wouldn't believe how many fans of Dragon Ball misunderstand this and still think Trunks is the stronger of the two. Some even think Vegeta could not obtain the Ultra Form or Grade 3, which is even more insane, but some just completely ignore the comparison of what if Vegeta utilized Grade 3 and where his power would be in comparison to Trunks. And that's why I'm here today, to gauge where Vegeta's Grade 3 power would be, and then you will finally see just who the stronger fighter overall is in terms of their potential at that point in the story against Cell. So first of all, let's clean up the misconception of when Trunks actually transformed into Super Saiyan Grade 3 or Ultra Trunks. Some people think Trunks was only Grade 2 when he initially powered up, you know, when his ponytail band ripped off and his hair launched up, eyes disappearing. This was 100% not Grade 2, but actually Grade 3, and let me explain why. First of all, even in the manga, his body is much more bulkier looking now than it was when he was fighting off Cell previously to stop him absorbing Android 18. You see, in the anime, after this moment, there are like 2 episodes with Trunks constantly powering up, where it's so mad that his muscles just continuously get bigger and bigger, ridiculously in size. It's ridiculous. He will fight a little bit, then he will power up a little bit more and try to combat Cell again. Most of this was hugely for cinematics and effect, but from the moment his ponytail hair was all spiked up, when he powered up in front of Krillin, he was Grade 3. From there, Trunks would just raise his power while still in that form. We see it all the time. Fighters can remain in the same form and just raise their power. That's what Trunks was doing. He wasn't going Grade 3.5. He was constantly trying to keep his brute power topped up before the next fight and skirmish with Cell. You see, every time Trunks would miss a few punches, and looked completely out of breath. He would turn around, face Cell, then power up again, with the electricity finally appearing, showing us that during the times he's missing and getting tired, his power is actually dipping, so he has to get a second wind and power up again, if that makes sense. Like real life, if we were training and doing sprints, after a few sprints, we would take that recovery window to breathe, gather our strength, power back up and explode again for the next sprint. This is how Trunks was engaging with Cell, while still being in grade 3, because he needed all the power he could get. But it was literally sucking him dry. He was wheezing more than wheezing. Now, why was he grade 3 when his hair first spiked up? Well, it's simple. Up until that point, Trunks was talking to Krillin about how he believed he surpassed Vegeta in the time chamber and unlocked a power beyond Super Vegeta's level. Obviously, he was dead wrong about this, but at this moment, Krillin was encouraging Trunks to use this drastic Super Saiyan form, and after Trunks powered up, Krillin was completely shocked, and so was Cell. They had never seen this form before, and this strengthens that Trunks had become grade 3 at this point, not grade 2, because Cell or Krillin wouldn't be shocked at seeing the same form as Super Vegeta. They'd already seen that form, and by Krillin's analysis of Trunks' power-up, it was crystal clear Trunks had become this drastic Super Saiyan, the Ultra Trunks form. It was even narrated at this point that it was Ultra Power, which is above the Super Power Vegeta used. And just to debunk this real quick, about the right in using Krillin to imply Trunks is holding back and broke through barriers Vegeta couldn't, we know that was all wrong, because after the fight with Cell, it was solidified that Vegeta did do it and chose not to. That will end all arguments right there. Now that we've got that out of the way, how does this prove who is stronger between Vegeta and Trunks? Right now, it doesn't. We didn't see Vegeta at grade 3, so we can't compare a grade 3 Trunks versus grade 2 Vegeta. But now we know when Trunks became grade 3. We know exactly when he was a grade 2 now. So let us analyze Super Trunks' grade 2 performance against Cell and when he became it, to find out who was the stronger grade 2 between Vegeta and Trunks. Now, it's argued when Trunks actually went grade 2 for the first time, or Ascended Saiyan against Cell. When Vegeta let Cell go to absorb Android 18, Trunks got involved there. Now, when he first got involved, visually, he doesn't look bulky like Super Vegeta, so you could argue he is still in a regular Super Saiyan form at this point. At this level, he was able to confront Cell, deflect his attack, and cause a roadblock. But however you want to look at that, moments after this, Cell sees Android 18 and goes for her. Trunks powers up at this moment, and there's no question his body has changed, and he's now seriously ready to stop Cell from absorbing her. It's at this point, when Trunks is attacking Cell, he's pulverizing him, whilst looking much more bulkier in size, and this would make sense, seeing as Super Vegeta was able to manhandle Cell in a similar fashion. There is no way a regular Super Saiyan Trunks or Vegeta could take on Cell like this with this performance, so it strengthens the fact that Trunks had powered up to grade 2 at this moment to defend Android 18. But why wasn't there a huge power-up scene like Vegeta had? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? We already had the grade 2 power-up scene. Why spend another 5 minutes focusing on the same upgrade in such a heated time of Cell absorbing the android? It would make no sense for him to power up for 5 minutes, allowing Cell a chance to escape. Trunks went grade 2 here and they made it quick. And we can even support this further with when he confronted Vegeta and blasted him away. At this moment, there is no way a regular Super Saiyan Trunks could blast away Super Vegeta and make him bleed, even if he wasn't expecting it. Trunks had to be grade 2 in order to muster up the power to even push Super Vegeta back, and Vegeta was never shocked at Super Trunks' power when he bulked up. Which means even in all of Vegeta's arrogance, he never once felt threatened by Trunks' power exceeding his own in the grade 2 forms. Yes, it could be very close, or exactly equal, but never above Vegeta's, and this is further strengthened by Trunks admitting in front of Cell that he possesses nearly as much power as Vegeta does when referring to these forms. And earlier, Vegeta even acknowledges Trunks' power is not quite at his level, so he wasn't bluffing. And I don't want to hear, well, Vegeta was just bragging that he was the best. No, he is a smart fighter. He knows what's going on. He is fully aware of the grade 3 and would have easily noticed Trunks' power in the time chamber training together. Trunks thought he had the edge over Vegeta because the Greenhorn Kid thought Vegeta didn't know about grade 3, but he did. That was Trunks' trump card that he thought he held over his father to make him surpass him, but he was completely wrong. This all supports Vegeta's grade 2 is above Trunks' grade 2. But what other information do we have? Let's look at their performance on Semi-Perfect Cell. When you look at Super Vegeta pounding Cell, it was monstrous. Cell was broken and each hit felt punishing. But with Super Trunks, despite his motivated onslaught on Cell, Cell looked very resilient, more than he did against Vegeta. Call it Cell's desperation to get 18, you could argue that, but I'm not being funny. If Super Vegeta decided to destroy Cell there and then, even if Cell saw 18, there is no way Cell would escape Super Vegeta's onslaught the same way he escaped Trunks. A serious Vegeta versus semi-perfect Cell would have been the equivalent of a lion fighting a wounded goat. We know that. Super Trunks looked like he needed way more time to deal with Cell than a serious Vegeta would, based on the performance there. But what else do we have to put to the table? How about their performance on Perfect Cell? Cell starts transforming. Super Trunks cannot even get through Cell's transformation barrier, and even when he's perfect in the anime, Cell stands there and Trunks delivered a solid hit to the back of Cell's head whilst he's obsessing over his own body, and he and Krillin attack Cell as he's just standing there. This is some serious Majub versus Super 17 disrespectful visuals right here, and this should explain everything in the anime anyway. You see, this is Perfect Cell at his undoubtedly weakest state. He's just formed. He's just standing there with no intention of fighting or warming up. He's literally as low as Perfect Cell could go, and Super Trunks Grade 2 is a fly to him. And how does Super Vegeta fare against Perfect Cell? Much better. We know he gets his ass kicked, but let's look at his performance. Even in the manga, he actually pushes Cell to block and defend against his attacks. And even when Cell stands behind him, Vegeta hits Cell with a mighty kick to the head, and even though it does no damage, at least Cell's head was moved out of its still position. Trunks couldn't even make Perfect Cell flinch from a standstill. And let's not even get started on the final flash. Whether Trunks' super burning attack could do the same is unanswered, but unlikely to be the same effect as the final flash. What you need to understand is, even though Super Vegeta and Super Trunks are not dimensions apart, Vegeta's performance against Cell proves his grade 2 is just a little higher than Trunks. And if you want to go with linear increases, so would Vegeta's grade 3 be higher than Trunks' grade 3, but he knew about the weakness and chose not to use it. You could argue that Trunks would do better as a grade 3 than Vegeta because of his hybrid potential, or just being damn right motivated to end the androids, a stronger willpower in the fight. Either way, they're all screwed in grade 3, but if there's anything you've learned from this video, it's Super Vegeta at grade 2 is stronger than Super Trunks at grade 2, and would pretty much guarantee his grade 3 would be higher in brute power too. Trunks and Vegeta have always been about the same in the Cell Saga. Even after the second time chamber training, both seemed relatively similar in Super Saiyans at the Cell games, so maybe Trunks learned a thing or two in his fight against Cell. That helped his training the second time around and helped close the gap between him and Vegeta in time for the Cell games. Or perhaps Vegeta was still slightly ahead. It's highly likely. Despite it making no sense because Trunks is a hybrid and should have more power and potential, in Z anyway, Vegeta was always stronger than Trunks. He was stronger than Trunks ever since he achieved Super Saiyan. The only time in Z when Trunks was stronger than Vegeta overall was when he had Super Saiyan and Vegeta did not. And you could say when he used grade 3 on screen when Vegeta didn't. But unquestionably, Super Vegeta was always stronger than Super Trunks. Before the time chamber, after the time chamber, and you can even argue in the Cell games too. And if they fought, Vegeta would eventually beat Trunks through experience and power combined. But it would be a good fight. Let's get over to the circumstances in the battle between Vegeta and Cell. Vegeta was utilizing his grade 2 Super Saiyan form, otherwise known as Super Vegeta, or Super Saiyan 2nd grade, where he proved no match in hand-to-hand combat against Perfect Cell, thus resorting to using his trump card, the Final Flash, provoking Cell into taking the attack that he was charging up, out of desperation. And by the look on Cell's face as the Final Flash was launched, he knew he underestimated Vegeta's collected energy for the attack. Needless to say, Cell regenerates from the attack, but the attack did prove its intensity by severely wounding Cell. Some argue Cell would have died if the attack caught him somewhere else, and although I can see that argument, especially if Cell underestimated it and was just standing there to see if he could tank it, it still doesn't hold weight in Super Vegeta being able to finish the job because Goku, who was far stronger, charged up a super strong Kamehameha that everyone feared and launched it point blank at Cell, and he still survived. Now, I don't need to teach you how to suck eggs, scholars, but Goku and his instant Kamehameha was far stronger and more damaging than Vegeta's Final Flash, despite it not looking as big in the effects. Goku charged it with decent time, and it was his strongest attack. So if Goku's attack wouldn't work against a defenseless Cell, Vegeta's attack wouldn't have got the job done. Look, not even Gohan's Kamehameha against Cell, first time around, it didn't end him. And that was a Super Saiyan 2 Kamehameha eating through Cell's attack. Vegeta had no chance with his Grade 2 Final Flash. But then you have to ask yourselves, okay, if Grade 2 wasn't enough, what about if Vegeta used Super Saiyan Grade 3 and then blasted Cell with a Final Flash? That Grade 3 raw power is pretty high, right guys? You would assume, seeing as Cell is just standing there, that the slower yet stronger Grade 3 raw power would have been peach perfect in catching Cell off guard and finishing him off, right? And remember, this Cell was not as strong as when he took on Goku. He hadn't powered up yet, so a Grade 3 level of raw power right here on this Cell could it have actually ended Cell with its raw explosive power on a sitting duck? Firstly, could Vegeta use Super Saiyan Grade 3? Yes, he could, it's been stated. He only chose not to use it. Trunks did not know that Vegeta couldn't do it, but Vegeta knew what the hell he was doing, and if you want a breakdown on who is the stronger between Vegeta and Trunks as Grade 3, check out this video I put out if Trunks was stronger than Vegeta, and you will see that Vegeta's Grade 3 power is no joke in terms of raw power. So with Super Vegeta being desperate, why didn't he just bulk up one more time and use a stronger Final Flash against Cell, who was willing to take the hit? He was going for endgame, right? Well, there are a number of reasons why he didn't and couldn't. And no, he wasn't Grade 3 for the Final Flash, in case anyone says it. I know someone will say, well, he pumped up just at that time in the Final Flash to Grade 3. No. You all remember when Trunks went Grade 3, Cell and everyone else soiled themselves for a moment, but Vegeta was in the sky charging up and Cell was just smiling. The oh crap face was due to the collected energy, not the form. Let's talk about this first reason. It's the most obvious one, plot. They wanted Trunks to be the one to step in and be the next level of the Ascended forms, basically to give Trunks a turn against Cell and make it epic. All for it to fall flat right at the end with the form's weakness. That's basically it. Assume Vegeta is the best, then play everyone, and Trunks steps in and thinks he's the best, but really it was all one big lie. They could both go Grade 3. But another reason why Vegeta may have not gone Grade 3 to attack Perfect Cell was part of the bait in itself, losing the element of surprise. If you think about it, Perfect Cell was in control. From a mere kick, he tested Vegeta's current form and thought he knew where he stood with it, but Vegeta seemingly held back a lot of energy to use in the Final Flash as a surprise last-ditch move, if needed. You see, Cell didn't realize this insane power up until the Final Flash actually launched, and Cell was sure he could take on whatever Vegeta was going to throw at him, but like I said earlier, a little bit of an underestimation. So if he did turn Grade 3 in front of Cell, out of some desperation, he wouldn't have done it because Vegeta knew the weaknesses, but let's say he did. The power surge in itself would start to shock Cell, just like when Trunks transformed. At this moment, we have to ask ourselves a serious question. What the hell happened? No, I'm just joking, guys. If the power of Grade 3 Vegeta was in front of himself, and Cell's assessment may see the raw brute power is above his own current strength, would he really take Vegeta's Final Flash provoking after feeling the new surge of power in front of him? Hell no. Cell would not be as risky now taking a full power attack from this new level of energy in Grade 3. Hence why he dodged like crazy at Trunks' bear punches and kicks, because he knew they would hurt like hell if they connected. So the Grade 3 transformation would not have allowed Vegeta the time and preparation to gather the energy for a surprise Final Flash. Cell would not have taken that level of risk head on, but would have been much smarter and smashed Vegeta around with his speed alone. Another reason Vegeta didn't use Grade 3 to launch the Final Flash could have been down to his own decision and thinking process. Firstly, he could have been just so angry he didn't even consider transforming again, but rather just launch everything he's got in his current state. I mean, he was quite angry, let's be honest. Even Piccolo said Vegeta was losing his cool during the fight, so the Final Flash could have been the end result of Vegeta's rage. But another reason why he didn't use Grade 3 could be down to just his own judgment, believing Cell's current strength, despite it being extremely more powerful than his own, might not be able to fend off a full power Final Flash. So he held a belief in his own Super Vegeta strength for his Final Flash to get the job done. Obviously it was a miscalculation, but at that time, he probably thought, no one could survive this attack if I charge it up all the way. Arrogance? Yes. But he's just acquired this new level of power, so why the hell not? However, despite all these plausible reasons, all of them fall short of the next reason, which I heavily placed my bet on was the reason Vegeta didn't use Super Saiyan Grade 3 for the Final Flash. And that main reason Vegeta didn't use Grade 3 for the Final Flash was literally down to the fact it would not make any difference. So hear me out. A character like Super Vegeta has one big pool reserve of ki in his body. When he transforms, it uses ki to hit the next form. Then he uses ki to sustain the form and uses ki to punch, kick, whatever. That ki gradually decreases. The higher the form, the more ki is consumed for attacks, making them hurt more. It's a simple concept to understand. Energy output. Vegeta's final flash against Cell was Vegeta collecting and drawing on pretty much the majority of ki inside himself into one attack from the same pool of energy. It took a lot more time than a quick attack because he was trying to gather everything he had. You see, even if Vegeta went grade 3, yes, he would probably be able to launch it quicker because the form is almost pressuring the user to unleash the ki in excessive amounts. But it's still the same pool of ki. And Vegeta was just trying to gather it all. The same pool that's emptying slowly. Whether Vegeta is in regular Super Saiyan grade 2 or grade 3, if he wants to use his strongest attack of all time, using all of his ki, he could do it in any of those forms, but it will take longer in the lower forms to gather the ki, obviously. But if he's in the higher forms like grade 3, he's already accessed all of that ki through the transforming and just being present in the form. Vegeta's final flash was energy from everything he had, and was probably the best way to unload all of that energy in one blast, rather than transforming first and then doing it, because he would have used that ki needed for the attack to just transform and sustain the form. Wasted ki. These are technical reasons. When perceiving Super Vegeta's entire fight, you could argue Vegeta had expended some energy blasting and hitting around semi-perfect Cell, plus when Cell became perfect, he used up a little bit more energy and then got hit extremely hard into the ocean, thus weakening him a little bit. You could argue that at this point. Vegeta didn't have enough energy reserve in the tank to make the jump from grade 2 to grade 3 because he needed that remaining energy for the final flash itself. Where you could say if he ascended and bulked up to grade 3, he would have used the remaining energy to just transform, and his final flash may not have been as strong due to his lessened ki. And I think that is the best reason. If Vegeta went to grade 3, he doesn't get a magical full heal on his ki reserves. No, he's being sucked dry constantly until he goes and rests up for a few hours. Or eat a senzu bean. Sometimes you have to be efficient in managing your ki, and I think that's what Vegeta was doing. In order to hit Cell with his best attack, he managed his ki correctly there. Why couldn't Future Trunks become a Super Saiyan 2 before present timeline Gohan in Dragon Ball Z? What was the problem Future Trunks faced despite being introduced stronger than Gohan when Future Trunks killed Frieza, despite being stronger than Gohan when both entered the time chamber for the first time, despite being older? What in-story reason prevented one Saiyan hybrid becoming as strong as the other? The first son of Goku versus the first son of Vegeta. You would think Trunks would have at least similar potential in Dragon Ball Z compared to Gohan, considering later down the line in the anime version of Dragon Ball Super, Trunks obtained a level of power through his own raw potential that could take on the likes of Goku Black, powers far beyond the godly powers introduced at the start of Dragon Ball Super, such as Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue. Of course, Gohan's power was stated to rival Super Saiyan Blue later on, close to the Tournament of Power, or at the very least, face levels of power beyond Battle of Gods. And even in the manga, fight in a fusion, where Super Saiyan Blue Goku was starting to find Kale, one fusion part, a handful. And this was just from him regaining his fighting instincts over the weekend. I'm not trying to make sense of it, I'm just stating what I saw. My point being that in Dragon Ball Super, the hybrid potential wasn't held down. They could become stronger in a heartbeat, but of course, we know most power creeps are down to plot and marketing. But the story still stands. Trunks and Gohan were incredibly strong in Dragon Ball Super. Even if you wish to use the manga only, Trunks' Super Saiyan 2 power was able to rival a post-Battle of Gods Super Saiyan 3 Goku, which is an incredible power-up in its own right, but it's still nothing to what we have now with Gohan, who has become Beast Gohan, and is still younger than what Trunks was in the Goku Black arc. Either there's favoritism in the writing, or Trunks has a huge problem. But let's go back to Dragon Ball Z. Trunks grew up in a world filled with suffering, so there's no doubt he has a lot of emotion built up inside. Of course, this is down to the writer allowing it, where Gohan was written to be a monster as a Super Saiyan 2 and Trunks was written to be the one that changed the future, but not to be the strongest. It's a great story, but it still makes you wonder an inverse reason. If the trigger was right, could Trunks have gone Super Saiyan 2 before Gohan? And more importantly, why wasn't Trunks as strong as Gohan in general back then? Gohan had a lot of hidden potential back then in Dragon Ball Z. In fact, that was the entire foundation of his arc arc through Z. It all surfaced in the Cell games that ultimately completed his arc. When we watch the Cell games, the simplest answer is that Trunks just wasn't strong enough to wield Super Saiyan 2, or didn't have the hidden potential that Gohan had during that time, where even if Trunks obtained Super Saiyan 2 in the Cell games, he potentially still wouldn't be as strong as Gohan's Super Saiyan 2 level just through raw power alone. Close but not quite. Also, being the son of Vegeta, where Vegeta has shown higher natural potential than Goku throughout Dragon Ball Z and Super, but it raises even more questions about Trunks' natural potential. So let's look at Gohan's fighting experience compared to Trunks to see if that would be a reason why Trunks' potential didn't shine like Gohan's in Z. Gohan had experience preparing for the Saiyans, then his journey to Namek and what transpired on that planet. You can count the Garlic Jr. arc if you're looking at anime exclusive stories. This is followed by 3 years preparing for the androids, then nearly a year in the time chamber, as well as the fight with Cell, all of which adds up to approximately 5 to 6 years worth of intense times for Gohan. With future Trunks, he's roughly 17 years old when he defeats Frieza. Then he comes back 3 years later and follows up with 2 years in the time chamber, putting him around 22 years old. And yes, the 3 years did pass for Trunks because his time machine is linked to the present timeline through the time machine. That's the rule of time travel the moment they are linked. 1 minute passes in the present is 1 minute in the linked future timeline. But either way, after the second round in the time chamber, where Trunks fought in the Cell games, as well as destroying the androids in his future, that was the highest potential of future Trunks in Dragon Ball Z. Apart from the brief training with future Gohan, Trunks was basically surviving, not so much fighting and growing. If I had to guess, future Trunks did his own personal training after future Gohan died, but how effective was it? Well, future Gohan said that it wouldn't take long for Trunks to surpass him, a few months actually. But by the time Trunks killed Frieza, he wasn't leagues above future Gohan's potential, but somewhere in the same ballpark after 3 years past his death. So not that effective in terms of his own personal training after Gohan died, but for the present timeline Gohan, he always had a mentor, whether it be Piccolo, Goku, or both at the same time. It was efficient training and he was fine-tuned by the time of the Cell games. Consistency is important when training, where Trunks was on and off with his battles, and even if Trunks gained plenty of Zenkais from surviving the androids, so did present Gohan during his arc in Dragon Ball Z, before the Android Saga. Trunks really couldn't make the best of it because Zenkai boosts by the time of the Android Saga weren't as impactful compared to on Namek, because everyone back then weren't as strong. However, when future Trunks does return to the future to kill the androids, he was far above future Gohan by that point and was much younger. Future Gohan fought his whole life and was nothing compared to an 11-year-old in the Cell games. So what went wrong with future Gohan? That's a story for another day, or we're going to be here a long time. But when it relates to present timeline Gohan, future Trunks at his best in Z was not even half the power of someone half his age, despite both being hybrids. It wouldn't be until years later fighting Dabura where Trunks would actually achieve Super Saiyan 2, finally, but by that point he had received training using the Z Sword. Cool, he got there, but Gohan did it much younger. So perhaps there was an element of Gohan having the advantage in terms of consistent, efficient training in a shorter window compared to Trunks that never really had a mentor after the brief future Gohan training. Plus his 2 times training in the time chamber was basically alone. Vegeta didn't train him like Goku trained with Gohan, and that would indeed affect the results of drawing out the potential of Trunks. He wasn't even that experienced in becoming a great all-round warrior, and this was proven with his mistakes against Cell. His mind was lacking, and this in turn stunted his physical growth. He focused on pumping up his little muscles for power purposes rather than focus on conditioning his body and his Super Saiyan power for fighting purposes. Gohan's training had underlying messages, that it wasn't all about the gritty and bloody training routines. Recovery is important. It was conditioning him to bring out the best in him as a fighter, and he combined that with all of his years of battle experience to become a Super Saiyan 2 monster. Mind, body, and spirit all came together for him. That training plan gave Gohan a massive lead on Trunks. And we have to remember, Gohan started training at a much younger age than Trunks. If future Gohan survived and kept training Trunks, he would have definitely had a better foundation of training knowledge to unlock his potential much sooner, rather than get the crap beat out of him all the time by the androids. That's not training, that's not conditioning. He may get a cheeky little Zenkai here and there, but it would never be enough. Saiyan battle prowess, fighting, is the key for the body, along with mindset, which future Trunks had a disadvantage with, because getting beat up all the time, losing everyone you love, being tortured, that would be traumatizing. In conclusion, we know it was the right decision to push Gohan as the Cell Saga hero and the superhero, but going with an inverse reason, we can say Trunks' potential was definitely as high as Gohan, as proven in Dragon Ball Super, but the reason why Gohan's potential was drawn out faster than Trunks could have been down to lifestyle, training efficiency, and of course, the final trigger for Super Saiyan 2. Trunks had that against Dabura, but I do believe it should have happened much sooner for someone who experienced what Trunks did. Imagine Trunks had the same rage trigger against Zamasu back in the Cell games. Imagine how strong he would have got then. Sometimes it's about finding the right key to the door. If we go by the manga version of events, there's some little details that I want to share with you right now. Trunks was already a Super Saiyan when he was training with Future Gohan, which changes the whole game when Future Gohan dies. Why couldn't Trunks become a Super Saiyan 2 upon Gohan's death? Surely that would have been the trigger needed for the next level. If he was already a Super Saiyan, what can be more hurtful to Trunks, other than seeing Future Bulma die in Super? Again, the writing. But when you compare this to Gohan, when he unlocked Super Saiyan 1, he wasn't far off Super Saiyan 2 because Goku already saw that power for a brief second. So the gap Gohan closed in a short time thanks to the plot is insane. Future Trunks in the manga version was already a Super Saiyan for some time, and I strongly believe in verse he should have had the potential for Super Saiyan 2 with all that rage seeing Future Gohan die, being a hybrid and all. But you guys let me know what you think about that. I think the future timeline is just cursed for unlocking potential. So we just go around in circles where it all boils down to Gohan unlocked more potential than Trunks at his age. I don't want to say Gohan's got infinitely more potential than Trunks despite both being hybrids, although it does seem that way right now with Beast Gohan, but we haven't had much of Future Trunks lately, at least not in the main continuity. But we just don't know how far Trunks can go either, and if his Super Saiyan Rage out of nowhere is anything to go by against Goku Black, then I'm not counting him out just yet in terms of his potential. And that's it. Being a hybrid was the key to more potential in Dragon Ball Z, but they would still need the proper fighting and training experience to bring out the potential faster, as well as a suitable trigger for more rage. And as proven with Gohan, it was done at half the age of Future Trunks. But the biggest problem with Future Trunks and what he had to face was not himself, but the writing.